Okay.
I assume that's recording. What happened to the PowerPoint?
Oh, I liked it.
Oh, okay. I'm going to dim the lights just a little bit.
Okay.
But you can start whenever you're ready. It's running.
Okay, we'll just dim the lights, and then that way we'll have consistency.
Cool.
Yeah, indeed. All right, so it's recording. Hey, Adrian. Hope you enjoy rendering these videos. Thanks for doing your stuff. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a little bit of survey time. This will be the interactive portion of the talk. This is really nice that it's a small, intimate group that we have here. So, show of hands here, how many folks are actively practicing, like doing forensics and information security type stuff? You're like out there in the field doing it. Okay, how many of y'all are students going through this? Okay, all right. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about this talk. My goal for this presentation is to infect you with an idea. I want to just plant something in your head, let it rattle around a little bit, and I'm going to warn you that my goal, my hope, is that you will change how you see incident response and digital forensics. I want you to start twisting things, start thinking of things a little bit differently. Now, some of the things that I'm going to be talking about in this talk are going to make some folks uncomfortable because it's not the official way that you should do things, and there are certain things that will cause problems, potentially. And that's one thing that we'll discuss a little bit of time with. The topic that I want to talk about is help from the help desk. Okay? Show of hands, how many folks have had seat time in being a help desk person? I know I have. Okay. Was it fun? Was it good? Did you like it? No? 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 Okay. Universal, I think that's a universal given. Everybody hates the help desk. Everybody hates being the help desk. Everybody hates having to call the help desk. So what the heck are you talking about, Douglas, that you want the help desk to help us in our incident response and in our forensics? Well, here's the deal. Here's the ugly truth of what we're facing up against. This is the Verizon data breach report stats from last year. Now, I don't know if you all have seen this. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Verizon data breach, I know that there's some folks who are newer in the information security field here, so I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about this. The Verizon data breach report is a report that's done every year by Verizon Business. Verizon in the mid to early 2000s bought up a good chunk of the core internet from UUNet, which was an MCI WorldCom company. And because they have such visibility into about 60% of the North American internet core, they're in a unique position to see what sort of attack data is out there. And this slide is the one graph that when I read the report, I shivered. And what they're showing here is, and this gray doesn't show up terribly well, sorry about that. We're showing the initial attack to initial compromise. So when they reached out and did the initial scan, when they did the discovery of the host, how long did it take them to actually compromise or get into a system? 43% of the time, they were able to get into a machine in seconds, 29% of the time in minutes. For a total of 72% of the time, they're going to be able to get into your network, into your systems, in under an hour. Question for you. How fast are y'all with pagers? If it's ODark 30 on a Saturday, are you going to be able to respond in this kind of a time frame? going to be really tough. It's a race with the devil, and you're going to have a real hard time to go. Now, this is scary. This is really scary. This is the thing where, like, I had heart palpitations. This is the initial compromise to the time of discovery, to when they realized they were compromised. Not fixed, not patched, not everything good to go. It's to when they even knew that they were that they had been compromised. And in 24% of the time, the bad guys had been in their network for a week. In 39% of the time, they've been in there for a month. And in 9% of the time, multiple years. A total of 72% of the time, there was at least a full week where they had access. Holy crap. That's scary. That's really, really bad. Is our current information security program, is it up to the task? Show of hands here. How many people think that antivirus and firewalls and patching are enough to keep the bad guys out? It's not. The problem that we have is that we are ill-equipped. The tools that we have for defending ourselves just aren't up to it. The tactics that we're using aren't appropriate for this kind of situation. And the most appropriate analogy that I can think of is, cavalry with swords. You're on your horse charging at a tank. You know what the outcome's going to be on here. This is why things like the data loss or data breach database that's run by offensive security has just a complete wall of shame. This is why you're always getting, identity theft. How many times have you folks, show of hands, how many folks have had their ID stolen or their credit stolen? All right, how many people have had it multiple times stolen? Yeah, this is why. We're having real big problems. Now, the problem is we're beating this dead horse. We keep on saying, well, you need to get more patching, you need to get faster, better firewalls, you need to do this. Well, every security conference, you're going to hear people saying you need to get better at patch management, configuration management, you need the new compliance appliance. Who knows? They keep on saying this. We've beat this horse to death. Question for you. What is the definition of insanity? Anybody know this quote from Albert Einstein? I don't know if he actually said it or not, but it's attributed to him. The quote goes something like this. The definition of an insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. And that's what we're doing. We know that everybody's doing their patching. We know everybody's got the antivirus, but they're still getting in, and we're doing the same thing that they're doing, and we're expecting that somehow, magically, we're going to be okay? That's crazy. Now, the good news is there's some folks out there who are trying to mix things up and do things a bit differently. One group that's out there doing some real interesting work, and if you've not heard of them, you should definitely check them out. Paul.com, they're a security podcast. They do a video show. For those of you who don't know, the hack naked is one of their key phrases. It does not refer to hacking with your clothes off, although if you want to do that, please just turn off the webcam, and do that in the privacy of your own home. Hack naked actually refers to the concept of your attack machine. You don't want to have antivirus or firewalls on that because that might, like if you're making your own, so I've done this before. I've been making custom or trying to customize known malware and twist it around so that it works. And I accidentally turned on the antivirus, and the antivirus was like, hey, I cleaned it for you. And you're like, there goes that afternoon's worth of work. But anyway, Paul.com, interesting podcast, interesting show. PG-13, so just be aware, might not be entirely appropriate for, playing in the office. But they're doing some really cool research, very cool initiatives. The one that I think is the most interesting is under this umbrella of active defense. They have a system called ADHD. it's a live load distro. So if you go out and hit the Google and type in ADHD distro, if you just put this in, you're going to get a bunch of stuff about attention deficit, which, you know, a lot of information security folks may or may not have. But this distro is a live load CD that will give you a lot of tools that will make your network significantly harder for the bad guys to attack. It's very fun to play with, and it's a very interesting idea of flipping things on its, flipping information security on its head. Now, the thing that I would caution you about is that this is a very technical solution to the situation. And it's a great tool, definitely check it out, but it's not going to be enough on its own. Bruce Schneier, anybody familiar with him? Big crypto guy? He has a very, very good quote where he says, if you think technology is the solution to your information security problems, you don't understand your technology and you don't understand the problem. So one thing that's really neat, and one of the guys on the Paul.com podcast, John Strand, he and some others created a class called SANS 646 or 464, which is called HackerGuard. And it's a really cool program. It's a class where you teach systems administrators how to become security people. And the concept is that systems administrators know their systems a lot better than any security person would know. As a point in fact, anybody know when the first rootkit was discovered? This is a cool little bit of hacker trivia. Just take a guess. I'm not gonna throw stuff. It was a while ago. I'll give you a hint.
1977.
Not that long ago.
88.
88, exactly. Yeah, it was 1988. In 1998, or 1988, sorry, a systems administrator was logging into his Solaris box, and he was like, man, something just feels weird. Like this box is not handling the way that it used to. There's something wrong here. And he couldn't really articulate what was wrong, but he just knew that it was hinky. And so he went to the security team like any good systems administrator would, and he said, hey, this box is acting really weird. And they said, oh, well, we'll just check the permissions. Okay, yeah, the permissions all check out. We'll check the users. Oh, users all check out. We'll check the daemon processes. Daemon processes all checked out. Systems administrator still was like, man, something's wrong. After a lot of work, he finally did some network analysis and saw that there were packets that he could not that there were no, like when he was looking at netstat and when he was looking at the process listing, there was packets coming out that interface that system wasn't owning up to. And so he started doing more and more work, and he eventually uncovered the fact that there's this little bit of software running in its own little container that it wasn't reporting on. It was a rootkit. It was something that had never been seen before, and information security people just couldn't get it because systems administrators knew the system a lot better. It's this class is really fun. I'll be teaching it in a couple weeks, so shameless self-promotion there. But it's a real neat class. And it's a bit different in that a lot of information security people think, well, we're information security, we do this stuff. Systems administrators, you just run these commands, tell us the results, and we will do security things. And that's not what this class is. It teaches, a lot of blending and holistic approach. So it's a real neat thing. 2 years ago, I was in this very room giving a talk called Blue Team is Sexy. And the progress that's happened in defense in those 2 years is really awesome. However, there's a long way to go yet. And one of the things that I want to talk about today is pushing that boundary for Blue Team a little bit further. And what I think we should do as our next step, is start reaching out down the food chain of the corporate IT support structure and start working with the help desk. Now, when I initially pitched the idea of this talk to some friends, they were like, help desk? That's crazy. Why would you ever have the help desk helping you in security stuff? I mean, they're the help desk. And I was like, well, but we need them. And I couldn't really articulate it, so me having my own little odd set of neuroses, after that hanging out at the Wings place, I went back home and I sat down and I thought of like, here's why we need our help desk people. What if we got to lose, Nothing. If they say, no, we're not interested, hey, no skin off our nose. But it might make our lives easier. For those of you who are practicing in information security, show your hands again, okay? Who's actively doing this? Okay, how many of you show up to work, on Monday morning, you're gonna show up to work and be like, boy, I sure am looking for work to do. Yeah, it's crazy talk, right? There's an infinite amount of work to do, and I'll take whatever help I can get. I'm not looking for rocket scientists. I'm not looking for rock'em sock'em robots. I'll take what I can get. And honestly, we need the force multiplier. There's a lot of scut work. How many folks do forensics work? Digital forensics. All right. Would you say that more than 50% of the time you are crazy excited and doing really wonderful magical things?
No.
No. What would you say that more than 50% of the time you're doing?
Yes, doing monotonous tasks.
Right. And we'll get to that in a moment. But wouldn't it be neat if we could have a group of people that we could offload some of that to? That's what we're going to be talking about there. Here's where we start getting into the next little, taking it up a notch here though, is deepening the skill sets of allied IT disciplines. The help desk is the group that people interact with all the time. I can't think of a single group within the IT umbrella that users interact with more than the help desk. If they get skilled up, if they get clued in better, if they know what to do when the stuff hits that fan, that's going to be better for everyone involved. Now, there's a couple costs, and we'll get to that the next slide. Here's a little bitter pill. When I was giving an early version of this talk to one of my friends, he said, yeah, Mick, you forgot there's one other great thing. The help desk is seen as better than you guys. And I'm like, what? Everybody makes fun of the help desk. And he goes, yeah, you should hear what we talk about, you guys. Information security is Dr. No. We're the no fun guys. You're not allowed to do the file share. You're not allowed to play games. We're the corporate enforcers. Help desk, while they might not have a sterling great reputation, it's a damn sight better than what we got. I wish I were telling something else, but it is what it is. So it helps the help desk. They get out of their seat for a change. Again, show of hands, how many people worked help desk? All right, how often did you get to go out and roam around? Yeah, I felt like you would show up at, 7:30, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, whenever your shift started, and it was like clackety-clack. You're at your desk until, your mid-morning break or lunch or whenever you can deploy a ninja smoke bomb and get away from this bit for get out for a spell. Here's a neat thing though. It also allows them to do important work. Those of you who have sat at the help desk will really understand, but for those of you who have never done help desk work, it is soul crushing to do password resets. And you will be doing password resets all the live long day. It is soul crushing to fix somebody's printer. You're just doing all these monotonous little things. Wouldn't it be cool if somebody was like, hey, we think the bad guys broke in. Do you want to help us catch the bad guys? You're going to be beating them off with a stick at this point because they're like, yes, that sounds so cool. And again, we're going to be broadening their skills. This is a great, great thing. Now, there's a couple costs to this approach. It is not a quick win. This is something that's going to take a little bit of time to implement. go slow. Now, you're going to have to do a lot of training. There's no way around this. If you think of what your corporate, like typical help desk person's doing, they're just kind of following a narrow set. We're asking them to step outside and do a little bit more than what they were used to. Now, understand, there are some people that are on what I call the JOB. They just want that paycheck. They don't care. You know, you say, hey, do you want to take on more responsibility? They say no. Just, okay, thank you, God bless. Have fun. Because you don't want somebody that's looking to do just the bare minimum to be doing forensics work. If you screw up the forensics, like the evidence acquisition, what happens to your case?
It's out the window.
Yeah, it's shot to sunshine. It is gone. So you want somebody that's a little more of a go-getter, you know? And if you give someone that's been riding the help desk seat for a while, chances are they might be at least interested in the sales pitch. This is a big one that I've run into when I've tried implementing this with some folks, is finding the balance between traditional help desk work and new like information security work is very tricky. If you recall that one slide that I showed about how bad we're getting kicked in the teeth by the bad guys, there's no shortage of information security work. None. So you might be actually winding up having this person do 2 gigs and only one person. You don't want them to burn out. So you got to come up with a way to like flex the role so that they're not getting too beat up. Now, this will cause them to stretch and grow. That's great. Now, every time I've given this talk in like a more corporate-y environment, easy money, I will bet you this, that a manager comes up and says, oh, but they might leave the help desk then once they get these skills. Okay? That's a legit thing, you know? You're spending a lot of time and money in getting your help desk staff all squared away, understanding your systems, getting it so that they can close tickets and handle things in an appropriate manner. This is a legit issue. However, my counter-argument to this isn't a bad thing. There's a word for that. It's called a career. There's not a damn thing wrong with somebody having an upward career arc. Here's something else to consider. There is a gaping maw of like that's just trying to swallow people in information security. Just a couple weeks ago, eWeek had they did a survey on a couple different major, I think it was up to the Fortune 250 companies. It was a lot they surveyed. 56% of the places are understaffed in information security. So while it might be bad short term for your company if you know the help desk people up and bounce and they get better jobs, it's good for the industry as a whole. And you know, I keep on hearing all this talk about the new economy jobs, you know, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, and you know, okay, that's neat. All I know is here's one sector that's hurting for people, and you know, we're like stifling chances of people to get into there. So, survey time. How many people think that this is generally kind of something that's decent, like not a bad idea? Yeah, okay, cool. All right, now you might be saying to yourself, so how are we going to start doing this? Because you can't just jump in. Well, so what I would recommend is that you start helping them. You start prepping things for them. You make it a little easier for them. You do things like making event sheets or cheat sheets. You maybe even make a system, you know, if you've got SharePoint, maybe have a SharePoint form that they can just fill in the stuff, and then that will funnel through to your information security team, to your incident response team. As an information security person, as an incident responder, as a forensics person, I would love it. I would give hugs and kisses to somebody when they say, here's the issue that we found, here's the problem, here's who did it, here's when, here's all this stuff. Go. I'd be like, seriously? Like, you teed it up for me? Thank you. And I see some people nodding. You've been in that boat. Because usually what happens? What happens when you get called in?
They just hand you the computer and say, go figure it out.
Yeah! Yeah! And you know what? I've even had it worse. I've had people like just be like, here's a hard drive. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, it's messed up. And I'm like, okay. You know, and I feel like I need to get them in, like tied down to a chair and start getting out various dental instruments to, you know, get them to tell me the information. So this is something that, honestly, this is something that should be within the skill set of any help desk person, because all you're doing is running them through a script. This isn't that tough. Now, here's where you can take it up a notch. You can make things be a little bit better. You can get them involved in triage. You know, and if you think about it, the way things happen in, like in the armed forces, when you have a, you know, a combat casualty, somebody gets hit, and they take them back to, you know, safety and they start working on them. Well, it's not like they just magically transport the person and boom, they're in the operation room. That doesn't happen. There's a whole chain of events that occurs before they, you know, the surgeons are on the case. There's the corpsman who will try to stop bleeding and minimize shock. There's the transport team that will further stabilize them and get them there as fast as they can. What we should start doing is using the help desk and pushing out that response so that we, as information security people, can handle the surgery and focus on the detailed little, like, tricky bits. Have them ask initial questions. I love having them ask initial questions because it does two things. One, it tees up the investigation for me. It does another thing that's really magical. What happens if the help desk person interviews someone, and then I ask some follow-up questions, and they don't match? Something's up. Could it be that the person was lying to the help desk person? Could it be that that person was lying to me? Well, I don't know how the thing, like, it just, the porn started popping up. I don't know. Really? It just, what was happening? Well, I was working in Word and porn. And you're like, really? That's quite the macro you wrote in Word. And again, another thing is you can offload a lot of your boring stuff. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Just here's some of the things that I would encourage you to think about. Right? This isn't rocket science type stuff. This is real easy. All I'm asking you to do is do stuff like, you know, ask the basic questions. You know, the who, what, where, when, why, how, all this sort of stuff. You know, this isn't nothing new. Here's one thing that I've found handy is to either a sheet of paper or on a web form or whatever, have a little bit of a cheat sheet where, you know, you can say, like, that guides the help desk person. You know, it says, well, what happened? When did it happen? Where? You know, is it ongoing, or was it just a one-time thing? And are we dealing with protected data? See, one of the things that I think we get a little sidetracked on, this is getting on the soapbox here, I think we get sidetracked on the fact that we think, oh, bad guys are on the network. Hey, I hate to tell you, there's bad guys already on the network. The issue that I'm worried about is, are the bad guys getting to the sensitive data? You know, I'm willing to concede that bad guys are in networks. But if bad guys are in, say, the ATM network, that's a whole new level of uncomfort than it is for bad guys being in, say, like the kiosk network that you have for, like, your banking center. So understand that not all data is equal. And so here's an example of where they would, like, you know, fill it out. And they said, well, you know, the TPS reports came up with anonymous pictures and kitties. Okay, that's neat, that's cute, but that shouldn't probably be happening in your TPS reports. When did it happen? The end of the week. End of week reporting might be kind of important. Where? All accounting systems had this happen. Ooh, this is getting kind of scary. Is it ongoing? Yes. And what data was it? Well, the Globotron system handles PCI info, so we think that this is bad. So if you're going to do a risk rating on this, I would say that in this case, you're pretty in a world of hurt. So from this, from here, once you've got this, once you're happy with the sort of teeing up that the help desk is giving you, they're serving up this information better, you can start diving deeper, making the reports be a little better, a little, robust. Maybe make even if-then-else logic. If multiple machines, which machines? What user accounts noticed this? What permissions do the user accounts have? I mean, as you think this out, it's just going to naturally flow one through the other. So just don't be afraid to dive deeper. And we talked about this already a little bit. I'm going to talk about it a little more. Dirty secret number 1 about information security and forensics, it is dead boring. It is ridiculous how boring a lot of our jobs are. Anybody, show hands, who here's used MCase? Yeah, you guys use MCase. I don't get any money by mentioning it. I think it's a neat product, right? But, so when you're doing evidence acquisition, that bar moves from left to right. Can you ever trust the time remaining on that? No, that's the biggest lie ever. That is, so do you as the information security person need to actually be the one watching that bar move? Do you need to be setting it up? Probably not. And the thing that I find really weird is this issue right here is an interesting litmus test. And it's very polarizing. You either get IT people who are like, yeah, my job's boring, please let them do this work. And then on the flip side, you've got other people that say, my job is highly skilled, crazy, technically challenging, and if they did this, they might screw everything all up. And you know what, they might screw things up, but there's steps you can do to prevent that from happening. And I guess a lot of my, stuff is like, huh? Like, you're saying that they can't click next on a couple forms, or that they can't plug a device into your forensics acquisition system? I mean, if they're that incompetent, like, 1, why are they working for you? And 2, are they allowed out after dark? I mean, it just makes me wonder. There's a couple logical gaps here. Now, train them. Just train them already. Get them going. Get them, start giving them stuff to do and see how they respond to it. Now, push them. Don't push them to the point that they break and start failing. Make sure that you mentor them and that they go well, but push it to the limit. See how far they can go. You might be training up your next coworker. That'd be great. Here's dirty secret 2. Our jobs aren't that hard. I remember one time, and this was, I had just started working in information security, and my dad was still working at a steel mill. And I was talking to him on the phone, and he goes, so, how was your day? And I was like, oh my God, it was so hard. We were doing the TPS reports, and nobody put the memo cover sheet on, and it was just ridiculous. I can't believe that they would, and he was like, yeah, that sounds pretty rough. And I was like, so how was your day, Dad? And he goes, well, we had a fatality at the plant. And I was like, oh, okay, point taken. Here's the deal. Our jobs might suck. We might have really long hours. We might even have coworkers that we want to stab. I don't know. But our job in and of themselves, because of the tools, because of the technology that we've had, now for quite a while, we're no longer doing digital forensics, with, bear skins and flint knives. We've got tools. We don't have to actually go down to the, block at a time and read the stuff. Now, there are certainly times where that's appropriate. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying that our jobs aren't that tough. There's a lot of our job that we should feel free to let other people do. And a lot of people get nervous about this because they think, well, wait, if they start doing this, maybe they'll outsource my gig to India, or maybe they'll fire me. And yeah.
What do you think about the idea of replacing most of this with expert systems?
Okay, so great question. The question was, and just for those of you watching at home, hey again, the idea of replacing your stuff replacing a lot of this work with expert systems. I really like that idea. One of the big things that I am a huge believer in is automate as much as you possibly can.
Amen. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, a little amen. We're having a little tent revival now. But yeah, I agree that if you can do certain things in an automated fashion, that's great. However, there's certain things that I don't know of how to do well, like in an automated way, like actually physically pulling hard drives, that kind of stuff. Now there are some tools that allow you to do that over the network and that sort of stuff, but I am a fan of expert systems if possible. I'm a fan of pushing off my stuff as much as possible. I call that the good lazy, but when it comes time to writing my own job performance reviews, I write down that I was efficient. So that's what I do. Now, let me backpedal a little bit here. Our jobs are easy, but there still is plenty of difficult stuff to do. Okay, being able to build a timeline using ncases, scripts that will generate the timeline for you, that's pretty easy. Being able to accurately interpret that and explain some of the causality, that's a whole different ballgame. And I'll tell you, I've seen plenty of investigations, and I'd love a show of hands here, for those of you who've done forensics investigations, how many times have the timeline looked like it's showing one thing based off of just looking at it on its face, but you have to dig a little deeper and you see that actually something else is going on. Yeah. I know of a case where they thought that the secretary was sending out corporate secrets. And looking at at the network traffic, she was. Absolutely. Doing memory forensics, though, on the system showed that there was a root. She had been compromised, exactly. They were ready to string this lady out to dry, and in this case, it would have really stunk because she was less than 2 years away from retirement. It was just bad. So, there's difficult stuff. I'm not minimizing that. I'm just saying, wherever possible, push it off your plate. There's an infinite amount of work to do, folks. As soon as you push off the easy stuff, there's going to be more difficult stuff, more interesting stuff that fills your plate. I guess the two takeaways are, don't make things like your work be more grandiose than it is. Yeah, it's really cool that you're doing, a DD, duplicate of one hard drive to another, but honestly, my dog Mojo is pretty smart, and I think if I trained him with the right amount of dog biscuits, I could get him to drop the right disc into slot A. We've got write blockers now, so I'm finding some of the arguments that people give from time to time on this a little hollow, on why you shouldn't have people help you out. On the flip side, though, don't underestimate a task. What I would recommend, a little bit of a pro tip, is starting off easy. Figure out just something, some event that can be fairly easily automated, if you can automate it, or if it's something that requires human intervention, a little bit of judgment call, have the help desk help you out on it. Walk with them during it. Make sure that the instructions you're giving them are good and actionable and that they can follow. Now, here's a question for you. Does this take more time to set up? Yeah, absolutely. Here's what I'm hoping, though. Fingers crossed, you're going to have this problem again. Now, I'm not hoping that it will come your way, but I'm just saying, law of averages, Murphy being the punk that he is, you're going to have this issue come again. And so by getting that off your plate, you can be, good to go. Now, how do you know when it's time to start getting things off your plate? How do you know that it's time to push it to another person, or know that it's time to automate or do that sort of stuff? There's a great book called Time Management for Systems Administrators. Highly recommend. I don't get any coin for recommending that book, but they have a really good rule of thumb in it. If somebody asks you to do something once, that's cool. Somebody asks you to do it a second time, are they going to ask you a third time? They're going to ask you a fourth time. By the time it hits number 3 or 4, it's time to either get it off your plate or figure out how to automate it so that you can focus on the big ticket items. All right, so run through your IR scripts. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Think Geek shirt that says "Go away or I'll replace you with a shell script." That's kind of what we're shooting for here, the human macro. We want somebody who can do something for us in an automated fashion. You just give them like a flow chart, maybe something that you did up in Visio. Maybe it's an Excel sheet, you know, step 1 do this, step 2 do this, step 3 do this. You just give them that and they're off to the races. They're good to go. This sort of stuff, bread and butter. Love it. Interviewing folks. The help desk people, little secret, help desk people hate getting the inbound calls where people are, my computer, you know, and they're like holding the phone back here going, calm out. They love it when they get to be the person calling and saying, hey, we know that there's something going a little sideways with your computer. I'm going to ask you a couple questions so that we can get this resolved a little bit easier and faster for you. Help desk people love it because they're not receiving the brunt of the hate coming in at them. Management loves it because you're being proactive. You love it because you're able to focus on the neat stuff. And then, there's no real loss in that scenario. Now, we've been ratcheting it up, having them be a little more advanced, a little more involved. This is where there's a little bit of a line of demarcation here, this next slide. Some places don't want to cross this. And you know what? That's cool. There are some reasons why you might not want to. This is something that you need to chat with some folks. And some of those folks that you need to talk to are your incident responders, your forensics team, and certainly your legal group. If you're going to actually have help desk people do the evidentiary collection, you need to make sure that that's cool that they do it. The reason why, there are some states where you actually have to have your private investigator's license in order to do this sort of work. If you're dealing with European data, like the data of European citizens, there's a whole set of privacy directives that they need to be aware of and that they need to follow. So when they're dealing with the evidence, the stakes certainly get higher. Yeah.
In a lot of environments, you're also going to have to worry about HR.
Yeah, HR is another group. That's a great, I'll actually, remind me, I'll make the edit to that. That's something that should have been in there. Yeah, HR certainly is a group that needs to be involved in that. So yeah, you need to make sure that if they're going to go the evidence collection route, that you have buy-in, written buy-in, and that everybody's on board. I'll tell you this though, help desk people love doing this because this is actually where you're starting to bleed into the information security side of things. And practice, man, it is so fun to do tabletops. It's so fun to actually set up and say, hey, go grab this data, go grab this, go fetch me this, hard drive, go clone this hard drive. This sort of stuff is really cool, really fun to do. You have to practice though, because if you don't, when we talked about it earlier, if you screw up the evidence collection, poof, the case goes like a fart in the wind, man. You're in trouble. Here's the deal: once they get up to snuff on something, level up. Send them to something more advanced. Have them doing the cloning of the images. Have them maybe even start the NCASE process to get things moving along. Keep on turning up the volume. Give them more that they as long as they're able to take it. Keep on throwing them stuff. Yeah.
The problem is the more people that you drag into this, the more people you potentially have to bring to the table.
True.
And that's a big problem.
Yeah, no, it can be. It can be.
Because they don't respond well to lawyer pressure.
That's true. So there's going to be a balance point where you get into diminishing returns if you have too many folks doing this. And speaking about the lawyer thing, one slide that I had to cut for time was talking about, but I'll do it anyway. One of the things that you run into is if you're working on a case, you might get deposed. You might have to go to court. And I'll tell you what, it's both simultaneously the coolest and most horrific thing. I love it when my side is grilling me on stuff. They're like, hey, isn't it true that you did it? And you're like, yep. And did you do this? Yes. And you're like, man, I'm awesome. And then the cross happens. Oh man, that stinks. So you have to let them know what they're signing up for, and you have to, it can't be like everyone doing this. So there is a sweet spot that you gotta find. I don't know what your sweet spot is, but for me, and the other places that I've implemented this sort of situation, I've found that in general, it works out good to get a little bit of that work off so that you can have some cycles to focus on more important stuff. But, I mean, your mileage may vary. Make sure that you set up feedback that works both ways. If the help desk people are feeling that the instructions you're giving them are bunk and they can't tell you, you're going to run into problems very fast. If you're not happy with the work that they're doing, there's going to be problems. You need to make sure that it's open and honest communication. Now, here's some things. I love the help desk. I love people helping in. There's a couple lines that I will not cross. I don't want them interpreting results. I don't want them writing reports, period. It is way, way easy to misinterpret in NetFlow. It is simple to say, oh, look, this antivirus thing popped up, therefore you were doing X, Y, Z. Maybe that's not the case. These are the things that you need to actually have a little bit of seat time before you're actually doing this. Now, can they help? If they want to, but you got to be driving these. This is something that I would really fight hard on. Now, I know that this is controversial. I accept that. And a lot of people say, but they're the help desk folks. We can't trust them. Really? Your help desk folks usually have local admin on every machine in your workstation environment. You can't trust them? Yeah, I mean, they've got access, they can create accounts. Like, you can't trust them? What? You know, and then, you know, they're saying, well, won't this open us up to legal issues? Yes, it does. Make sure that you understand them. In a lot of cases, it's worth it, though. You know, another thing that I hear in an objection is, no, seriously, the help desk? Like, can we really have it? Yes, you can have the help desk. And then, this is one that I love. But they'll be able to see sensitive data. Oh, really? Let's run some Active Directory reports and show you what they really have access to. And a lot of times people go, oh, I didn't know that they could see the HR data. I'm like, well, where's the HR data? I'm like, well, it's on the server. I'm like, well, who maintains the server? And they're like, oh, never thought of it that way. And then finally, the last objection that I hear is, really, the help desk? And to this, and all of these concerns, I have to say, take a look in the mirror. If you are that violently opposed to the fact that the help desk is going to be stepping up the game, what are you thinking of the help desk? Why are you hiring them if you don't trust them? Now, I'm not saying that you have to go this route, but if you're, you know, at all busy, like it seems like y'all are, this is something that we should be seriously thinking about. Now, my time is up. I just want to keep this conversation going. I'm going to be releasing some cheat sheets and some tools that should helpfully make things a little easier as we, you know, help the help desk, help us. I'd love it if y'all spread the word about this. You know, if you are doing this already and are doing some of these things, let me know, like, what works, what doesn't work, because you know, you just got to try it. So let's keep the conversation going. Hit me up. There's my Twitter ID. And thank you so very much for your time. I also want to say special thanks to those of you who are running this shindig. It's nice to be back. Really appreciate it. And also thanks for listening and the great questions and comments, guys. That was really cool. So let me put there's my contact info. Thank you so much. Bye, Internet.